Thanks for tuning into another edition of Another Dolphins podcast. Thanks for joining us for a week loaded with action-packed content. We are less than 48 hours away from kickoff between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Miami Dolphins. Josh, football season is here, and I want to start by giving you a tip of the hat. I wanted to record on Thursday night, but you held strong. You were like, Jake, let's wait. Maybe something will happen on Friday. Maybe we'll have to come back, reconvene, and discuss a major topic. And Joshua Houtz, Jalen Ramsey is now the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. So one, thank you. And two, I'm expecting the mega million numbers by end of day.
Oh, thank you for telling me that, because I kind of forgot I suggested we push this thing, and this was what we were waiting for. I guess we expected more of an update with the injury report, maybe Jalen Ramsey's hamstring and things like that, but we got the ultimate update, right? It was a new deal for Jalen Ramsey, paying him $72.3 million, an extension that signs him until, I believe it's 2028, Jake. He's now with the Dolphins. 5 total years left on that, and it just comes days after Patrick Surtain inked his $24 million average per year salary. Now Jalen Ramsey's making $24.1 million per year. So we saw the same thing with Tua Tagovailoa. Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Surtain. It's just the way the Dolphins have been doing business, but it kind of threw me a little bit off guard. What about you, Jake? I mean, we see him on the injury report. You don't know what the situation is, and now you see Jalen Ramsey getting paid. I mean, not that he doesn't deserve it, but came a little bit out of nowhere, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, so there was that Ugly Ricky account. There was actually a couple other people. Stevie, someone I follow on Twitter. Let me see if I can get his name up here real quick, just because he even said it too, like the idea of Stevie.
The real reason.
At
the real
Stevie
reason's another one.
Oh, he was saying it too. I don't know. Good for them. They absolutely nailed this, because I had zero idea. I was thinking about the fact, Josh, that this was the Dolphins already paid Jalen Ramsey close to $25 million as a signing bonus back in March. Remember, he kind of tweeted out because Jalen Ramsey did a restructure, and Dolphin fans were like, oh, yay, Jalen Ramsey, thank you for taking less money so we could sign these guys. And Jalen Ramsey quote tweeted, and he said, chill, fam, I'm still getting my money. So it was always kind of under the impression that Ramsey was one of the highest paid Dolphins, and this wasn't something to be expected. But Josh, shout out them. They absolutely nailed this. I was very surprised to see this. And I guess my only question is, I'm not very fluent in wrestling, but man, pick your wrestler who, I don't know, went out in a wheelchair and stood up and started running, or came out of a casket, whatever it may be. Is this Jalen Ramsey's trampoline to return to action here?
I hope so. I mean, you see people, I posted the Kevin Nash coming up with, faking his leg injury, but then there's the Undertaker memes. There's all sorts of things. And I'm hoping that's what this was. We were going to come on here and talk about what this secondary might look like without Ramsey this week, some of those matchups. And we're not sitting here saying he's starting for sure, but it sounds like, things are getting that ball rolling now. And he said he only wanted to, there was a quote or some source said that he wanted to wait until he was back on the field to sign this extension. So it sounds like he's ready to play. I'm hoping that's the case, but it's just so Dolphins, right? We sit here and we don't know what to believe with these injury reports. We find out Aaron Brewer's hand injury. We find out, Jalen Ramsey's hamstring injury. Turns out it might have just been a contract thing. So hoping we get a fully healthy Jalen Ramsey this week, and excited for this window that we seem to have now, till 2028, Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Ramsey. Now the list goes on of these young players they have signed, and we got to make the most of it. So hat tip to Jalen Ramsey and all those smaller accounts that had this before, the mass media, Ugly Ricky as well.
I want to speak for some fans here, Josh, not all of them, and I don't want this to come off too negative, but Jalen Ramsey, he's played, 11 games for the Miami Dolphins, and he's now the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. He's one of the best cornerbacks ever. He 100% deserves it, but he's someone who he's going to be getting paid for 12, 13, 14 years into his career with this new contract. The Dolphins are really leaning into this. Does it Again, I'm celebrating Ramsey. He deserves this. He's a great player, and I think there's a nice pathway for him to transition to safety eventually in this Miami Dolphins defense, kind of like Charles Woodson did near the end of his career. But God, man, just kind of thinking about this, thinking about Miami naming team captains, I'm feeling a little queasy about Javon Holland, man. I'm starting to feel a little queasy.
Yeah, and I hate that we have to do this because I don't know if you saw, but he
Yeah.
was on Kay Adams' show too, and they asked him, what his
Oh,
thoughts were about not being a captain and things like that. And he kind of said, I'm still going to be the same guy. I'm still going to go out there and lead by example. But he kind of foresaw it coming with some of these, key veterans they brought in. But it was a lot of word salad that made it sound like Javon Holland might have been a little bit upset that he wasn't named the team captain. So I pray to God that he's not, one of these guys we got to get rid of. We end up losing Christian Wilkins style because again, that secondary, Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland. I mean, that's a great duo to have, back there for years to come. Cannot imagine seeing Javon Holland in another uniform. But Jalen Phillips is also up for a new deal, and there's going to be another guy that's up for a new deal. And I'm glad I'm not in charge, right? Not our money.
thanks for pulling me back, Josh. That was absolutely awesome. You're right. People are always going to be wanting money. I think that's the moral of the story here. Yeah, no, Howard had an awesome line where he said, even though I'm not a captain, I'm still a leader. And that was just absolutely fire. I do think there's just a little bit of the Dolphins are dealing with the identity crisis of a changing of the guard on defense, combined with the fact they're in win now mode. So you have these guys coming in, like Calais Campbell, who's going to be a team captain. Zach Sealer, who has been here longer than Javon Holland, he's going to be a team captain. You consider the fact that Anthony Weaver was a defensive line coach, so obviously he's going to kind of look towards those guys to be their own type of captains. So I'm right there with you, Josh. I hope it's a scenario where you can only pay one guy at a time, and hopefully Javon Holland will be next. But that was definitely something I was kind of wondering about, a little curious about. But I guess also too, as Dolphin fans, we're always going to find something to complain about when it's all said and done. Like, hey, Jalen Ramsey got all this money. We should be upset about Javon Holland. But Josh, Anthony Weaver started talking about Jalen Ramsey, and we don't have that last injury report yet. He did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday. And I think if there are two guys on the entire Miami Dolphins roster that, you don't practice all week and we'd still expect to see you out there, not be surprised, Teron Armstead and Jalen Ramsey being the two. But we did hear from Anthony Weaver say he's hopeful Ramsey will play. And if not, it could be a big day for Storm Duck or Ethan Bonner. So, Josh, when you start thinking just a little bit about, oh man, the glue of this defense, he might not be available, and instead we're going to have to lean into either a undrafted rookie or a undrafted rookie entering his second year. What are your initial reactions when you think about Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram? There are some playmakers on Jacksonville.
Yeah, my first thing is, oh man, we're really going to do this. I think I had to remember what you always say, is it trial by combat or fire by combat or something like that. That's kind of what we're going to see here with Storm Duck and even Ethan Bonner to an extent. I mean, we've seen him play some, professional football, but he does not, have quite the experience. He hasn't been put on an island like this before. So my first thing is, please get Jalen Ramsey out there. But then the next thing I'm thinking is, you have the Buffalo Bills on a short week. We've heard Anthony Weaver talk about that. We've heard Mike McDaniel talk about that. And if this injury, I mean, we can't sit here and say that Jalen Ramsey doesn't have a hamstring injury. He clearly had some type of injury that had him missing practice, but we hope to see him out there. If we don't, I'm okay if he's on a sort of speak, a pitch count, because it is a marathon, not just a race. And we have, much bigger problems than hopefully the Jacksonville Jaguars. But like we said, every game matters in the AFC. So I'm a little bit worried. I'm excited at the same time to see Ethan Bonner, see Storm Duck, Saran Neal, he looked pretty good, right? You said he looked like a superstar compared to some of those other guys in that first game, and he absolutely did. So intrigued, but a little bit queasy. What say you, Jake? Because they do have some really nice players in that on that Jacksonville Jaguars offense.
And two, I can just imagine scenarios where the Dolphins are doing some, cornerback, some safety blitzes, and Trevor Lawrence just has the mobility to escape the pocket. And I just imagine myself being so annoyed seeing him scrambling around and just spending so much time until guys are getting open. If we do see, maybe not so much Ethan Bonner, but Storm Duck, Josh, I got to thinking, so the Dolphins have this identity as a team that's had some success with some undrafted rookie cornerbacks. Nick Needham, his first career game was week 6 in 2019 against the Commandos. He was targeted 3 times in coverage. He did not allow a completion, and he allowed he actually had one pass breakup on top of that. I do have to add a little note. It was against Case Keenum, and Miami did lose that game to fall to 0-5. But I mean, Nick Needham, what I'm trying to get at is he felt like he belonged, right? He wasn't someone who you put out there and it's like, oh God, this guy's clearly undrafted. And the same thing was true for Kader Kohu, another undrafted rookie in his first game. He had 3 tackles. He allowed 1 reception for a total of 5 yards. He had 1 pass breakup in the slot. Now that was against the Patriots and Mac Jones. Josh, Trevor Lawrence is a completely different animal, but when you kind of consider this offense's outlook, start putting some pieces together for me. Who do you feel comfortable matching up with who? Because man, I'm just so relieved we're entering the year. Kader Kohu, not trying to hate on Kader Kohu. I think he's an awesome player. Him not being on Stephon Diggs and not being on that island, man, I'm super excited that that's something that we know for sure isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish I had the exact stats down, but I do believe Gabe Davis also torched him a little bit when he was with Buffalo, right? Probably Kader Kohu in the
Yeah.
slot. So we're not completely out of the, out of the clear yet, so to speak. But I'm excited as well, like you said, to see if Ethan Bonner can step up on the boundary, to see if a Storm Duck can take that role, and then to see what Kader Kohu does this year. Because, we saw him play very well as a rookie, but he did have that sophomore slump. So him being listed as the only nickel on that depth chart, I don't know what that means, but to me, I think that means we're not going to see him on the boundary playing at home where he belongs. And again, that adds some intrigue to what Kendall Fuller versus Christian Kirk is, I think, the matchup I had written down. Christian Kirk's banged up. We don't have injury updates yet, but he's a very good player. So him versus Kendall Fuller is how I see them lined up. And then I had Brian Thomas Jr. versus Ethan Bonner. Brian Thomas is 6'3", Ethan Bonner 6'1". And again, I think he can match up nicely there. Gabe Davis versus Kader Kohu. I guess Evan Ingram's another guy that you got to account for as a guy that, we got to rely on those linebackers, which scares me to death, and some of that the safeties as well. So, dude, we're sitting here listening. It's going to be a lot closer a matchup than I think Dolphin fans, think. And even the national, if you see the teams being picked, it seems like a Dolphins like 90% or something. I'm like, yo, we're Dolphin fans. We've been here before, right, man? Like, calm down.
Josh, have you seen the We're Costco guys video? You've had to, right?
I don't know if I did. What is it?
We're Costco guys, and it's Big Justice, and they're eating a chicken bake.
They jinxed the Dolphins, right? Wasn't there a video, and you had to tell me who they were? Yeah, they were doing the booms with the Hurricanes the other day. I know too much already. It's been like
their OG video is we're Costco guys. Of course, we have to try all the samples. We should do we're Dolphins fans. Of course, we're triggered by I don't know a rookie wide. I don't know. I think that's something we should kind of write down, and we should do a video about we're Dolphin fans. Josh, I'm super interested to get your thoughts here. So we had Gus Logue on the podcast from Big Cat Country, SB Nation's Jacksonville Jaguars site. That podcast premiered Friday morning, and he mentioned the addition of Gabe Davis. And it's so easy to kind of discount someone like him, who you drafted Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round. You have Christian Kirk. He's entering his third year in the system in Jacksonville. But Gabe Davis, he signed like a 3-year, $40 million deal to come to Jacksonville. I'm really interested to see how he's used in this Doug Peterson system, because I don't think he's necessarily going to be the quote-unquote clear-out guy like he kind of was in Buffalo. Just that vertical, go catch a ball 50 yards downfield while a cornerback stumbling over himself, looking like Wile E. Coyote seeing the anvil coming down. Why did you pick Christian Kirk against Kendall Fuller when you consider Kader Kohu is someone we're going to be seeing in the slot a little bit more than last year with Vic Fangio?
I guess I looked at the Jags depth chart, and I believe they have it listed as Gabe Davis might be that slot receiver. So that's the way I viewed that. That's why I thought so. But a Christian Kirk, I mean, we're not pigeonholing any of these receivers, right? That's just not what NFL teams do anymore. They're going to move all over the formation. So Kader Kohu is going to be, have to take on Christian Kirk if he moves into the slot. Brian Thomas if he moves to the slot, whatever it is. So again, those are the matchups I want to see, because Kader Kohu is a very physical corner. We've seen him blow up the runs. We see him do all sorts of things as a pass breakups and things like that. But I want to see, him get back to himself and become more of that player we saw year one and not so much year two. I know you have written down Elijah Campbell as well. He's a name that I think we so often overlook. And you talked about Nick Needham. Do you think they have any plans to maybe elevate him? He is on the practice squad now. Again, way too early to make any judgment based on the injury report, but that would definitely be a veteran presence in that secondary that can play, several different spots on that defense. What are your thoughts?
Not to go full Pepe Sylvia, man, but I think you nailed it. I think the availability of Jalen Ramsey is going to be very obvious when we hear if Nick Needham's going to be the guy called up, especially when you have Kader Kohu as that one slot guy. God, dude, I hate to sound like a broken record, but for the new listeners, Jalen Ramsey's that star position, somebody who can line up all over the field. So when you have that type of player, you can get away with, hey, we have Kader Kohu as our slot guy. And if, you're lining up 4 wide, you can deal with those 2 guys inside while using Jalen Ramsey. If we see Nick Needham called up, I think that's going to be like, all right, we're going to play it slow with Jalen Ramsey and let things develop from there. Josh, you mentioned Gabe Davis in his career against the Miami Dolphins. 17 catches, 296 yards for 4 touchdowns in his 8 games against the Miami Dolphins. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver did come out and say, don't sleep on Elijah Campbell. Don't sleep on the secondary because they're going to be using a lot of 3 safety looks. But who is that one wide receiver on the Jacksonville Jaguars? I think Christian Kirk is going to get his. He seems like one of those players where his good game might be 6 receptions for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then his normal game will be 5 receptions for 100 yards. I feel like he's just one of those great guys who's consistent. He's going to move the sticks. And there are going to be scenarios like there is in any football game where you just kind of got to let the offense have a couple plays. And I think Christian Kirk is one of those guys. But if the Dolphins start to get a little crazy and like we got to slow down Christian Kirk, who's that one guy you think that could just really kick open this game and just change everything Miami wants to do defensively?
Yeah, well, let me just clarify. I went back and looked at the depth chart, and Gabe Davis just sitting there all by himself. So I can't tell if he's, designated as a slot or not. So I may have misspoke with that. But regardless, I think it might be Brian Thomas Jr. He's that guy that I know that the Dolphins, they did a lot of work in him pre-draft. I think we talked about it. Mike McDaniel talked about this guy's a big physical freak. He has the speed. He can route run as well. So to me, I think he's going to be that guy that, they drafted very high, a guy that they're going to want to get acclimated quickly in that offense, and a guy who, maybe isn't getting the same type of coverage looks, or, maybe they aren't lined up against Kendall Fuller or, whatever it is. So I think Brian Thomas is going to step up and have a big game. I'm a little bit concerned with Evan Ingram as well, because, again, our linebackers have not been very good in coverage. So, again, lots of decent weapons that, if you were in desperate need of starting someone in fantasy football, I think all these guys, we probably at one point, Evan Ingram, Gabe Davis, we all had them at one point, right? So that's the way I'd go.
I'm interested to see how this develops because week 1, you have a system in place and you just sign someone like Gabe Davis, who I think both Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis will have the ability to stretch the field when one-on-one downfield. But I'm interested to see if it just being week 1, you just signed Gabe Davis to this expensive contract that maybe kind of go a little slower with Brian Thomas and lead him into things. And I say that as Xavier Worthy sitting on my bench, Josh, scoring 2 touchdowns in his first game as a rookie. So I could definitely see that blowing up in my face. But one thing I did ask you, Josh, and I've been thinking so hard about this because it's the first game of the season. So much is going to happen between now and the start of January. Was I overreacting when we consider week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars? Should this be considered a must-win game for the Miami Dolphins?
Must win? No, I don't know if it's a must-win game. I feel like they have. No, it's not a must-win game, but I was gonna say I feel like they had to win, so that makes no sense. Is it a must-win game, Jake? I feel like it is. But then I say it isn't. That makes no sense?
It's one of those things where, like, yeah, no, Josh, you're the mind of every Dolphins fan because it's week 1. Like, we're ready. We are ready to kind of shield ourselves when they just look so bad, when they look like that team that was in London and lost to Urban Meyer. But at the same time, Josh, I consider the fact that this is year 3 of the Doug Peterson system in Jacksonville. Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl winning coach. He's a very good offensive mind. Mike McDaniel is considered the best offensive mind in football. Mike McDaniel came into the season last year using this cheat motion with Tyreek Hill. It took 4 weeks for the entire league to be doing the same thing. There's a lot of pressure. I forgot what podcast, it might have been Heed the Call on Underdog, but they were kind of talking about Mike McDaniel being that guy who wears all the fancy jackets to school, and he's always the one to set the styles. This is a must-win, I feel, because Mike McDaniel needs to come out and show he's the better offensive mind. I think Miami has a better established offensive group. The Dolphins or the Jaguars are figuring things out with a rookie in Brian Thomas. You're bringing in Gabe Davis. I think that this is a must-win for 2 reasons. One, I mean, if they lose, we're going to come back here and say, like, this is how they're still going to be awesome. But there's 2 things that we can really hang our hat on. If Mike McDaniel comes out and is just a flat-out better offensive mind, that really helps us set the standards going into the season. If the Dolphins are messing around and Doug Peterson has this perfect scheme, I'm going to get a little queasy. It's not a must-win, but I'm going to start to get a little concerned because year 3, Josh, this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. Jalen Ramsey is the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is the 2nd highest-paid receiver in the NFL. Tua's top 3. Jalen Wild's up there. This isn't a team that should lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not a must-win in terms of it ruins their season, but it's a must-win in terms of showing the rest of the NFL that this team's identity is hopefully going to maintain itself through December. And I think that's why it feels like a must-win and also not at the same time.
No, yeah, I think you nailed it. Like, technically, it's not they're not mathematically eliminated, but based on everything you mentioned and what we need to see, yeah. So, man, now I'm getting even more, those butterflies, knowing that week one, and now you're making this even more of a pressure situation. Which we look back, you mentioned them unraveling that, cheat motion, 36-34 win over the Chargers last year. So, I mean, it was a shootout. I don't know that this offense is. I think they're ready, right? They're going to come out with guns a blazing. But like you said, man, if they somehow sputter a little bit against the Jacksonville Jaguars, then we might all have to reevaluate ourselves. But we're not going to do that, right? Dolphins are going to blow them out the water.
Especially with another new defensive coordinator, right? Like early in the year, you need to lean on this offense. Like late in the year, if you wanted to make this huge case of like Bradley Chubb, if he doesn't throw his helmet against the Titans, if you get one more stop, you win that game. Sure, I'll hang up and listen to that. But if you want to go with that, you got to look at some of these early season games where the offense is supposed to be just this super dynamic cheat code. Like, all right, you guys got to do the heavy lifting here. So I even wouldn't be surprised if this game script kind of follows that same line, and hopefully just the Anthony Weaver new defensive scheme, Jalen Ramsey being on the field. Maybe you get that one game-breaking play where instead of 34-36, it's 42-28, and you just had that little bit of breathing room. But Josh, it all starts up front. Sorry if I just cut you off, but I just kind of want to lead you in here with the idea. It's feeling like come Sunday, we will see Austin Jackson, Robert Jones, Aaron Brewer without a hook, Liam Eichenberg, and Austin Jackson is your 5 starting offensive linemen. And that, I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot better seeing Eichenberg at guard than I was with him at center, and it's just hilarious. Jake, we sat here and we joked that Aaron Brewer, based on what Mike McDaniel said, was probably going to have a hook on his hand, and it comes out that he had surgery, it's already repaired, and he's going to be playing. Yeah, he broke his hand. They fixed it all in the matter of time. When Mike McDaniel was like, he's week to week, everything's cool, bro. Like, so it's just I still don't know what to take away from these injury reports. But again, if you had to have Liam Eichenberg in your starting unit, their guard is fine. Robert Jones has looked fine. And you're talking about we're talking about the offensive line versus their defensive line, which is very good. But you're right, man. With expectations being so high, they've kind of shielded a lot of these starters all up preseason, right? So you had these Lamborghinis, they're fully detailed. They got full engines, gas, all the whole 9 yards, and they're ready to go. So I hope they come out guns a-blazing. But the scariest thing for me is that offensive line versus the Jacksonville Jaguars front. They got Arik Armstead, who very, very good defensive tackle. I think he ranked I have ranked 16th last season by PFF. And then next to him, you just Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker. The list goes on and on at guys that are going to give the Dolphins absolute fits. So this is obviously, we're so cliche to say, the game's going to be won and lost in the trenches, right? Wow, we really went out of the way with that one. But this is where I'm at least a little bit scared. So, Jake, talk me off the ledge and tell me your thoughts on some of these matchups against, again, one of the better defensive lines. I mean, Josh Hines-Allen had 17.5 sacks last year. That's absolutely absurd.
Bro, we got to give ourselves a little credit because we do so many podcasts, and I think there is a point, like when we're talking about the Miami Dolphins offense and we want to say like what they're trying to do, like there's a point where you can't sugarcoat it and just say the Dolphins offense is going to run really fast. Like you don't need to like really do anything else. You can just simplify things that easily. Dude, this defensive front scares the crap out of me with 2 former first-round picks in Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. The Jaguars were near the bottom of the league with just 40 sacks last year, Josh, but I think Trayvon Walker and Hines-Allen combined for 28 and a half of those. So more than half were just 2 guys, those pillars. And then you add someone like Arik Armstead, like you said, that defensive front is going to be scary. It doesn't seem like a unit that you're going to just be able to go out and run the ball right up the middle. But that's why Mike McDaniel is a run game coordinator. And what I think what's going to work for the Dolphins here, Josh, is that the Dolphins, I hope, are going to use the pass to set up the run. The Jaguars are going through a little bit of a makeover on the defensive end. They have first-year defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, who was actually with the Falcons last year and did a great job, but just trying to understand a new system. And then you consider the fact they also brought in Packers safety Darnell Savage, Ravens cornerback Ronald Darby. There's a lot of moving pieces here. So what I'm hoping here is that the Dolphins come out kind of like what the Chiefs did on opening night. Couple runs with Pacheco, but really it was just Mahomes distributing the ball all around. He was even targeting Justin Watson. He was targeting Juju Smith-Schuster. That's what I'd love to see from this Miami Dolphins offense early. Just make the Jaguars defense think. Make Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker have that split extra second longer where, oh no, if I, am charging at Tua, is Jonnu Smith going to go in motion right by me and just start breaking free up the sideline for 15, 20 yards? I'm really hoping that this is like a Jalen Waddle game. Everyone's going to be focused on the speed. Everyone's going to be focused on Tyreek Hill. The thing is, the Dolphins have so much of it. I think that's where they can maybe find some breathing room for the rushing attack come maybe the second half.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I love that you mentioned, getting the ball out quick, getting it to those playmakers, right? That's the perfect antidote for things like this, the misdirection, the things that, the Miami Dolphins do well. So we can sit here and talk about how elite that defensive line is, the question marks we have on the Dolphins offensive line. But when you add what we've seen already from this unit, when you add to his quick trigger, getting the balls to his playmakers, you got to feel good. So I like what you're saying, coming out, establishing the pass to open up the run. And we'll see what happens, because once you get the ball in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle's hands, Etienne, that's when the good things happen.
Josh, I don't know if we could. We could make a graphic for it, but I don't know if we'd have time to make a graphic for it. I wanted to play a quick game of higher or lower with you, and I wanted to start with who's going to have more receiving yards come Sunday. Is it going to be Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, and why?
I was gonna go with Hill. I just feel like Hill's been, he's that dominant force, and I have him in most of my fantasy leagues. So that's probably my. But either of those guys, there's no right answer. Do you have a reason for Waddle? My thing would be just the Dolphins running their offense through a Tyreek Hill, trying to make their playmaker happy, getting him those early touches that we've seen before. Because it does seem like Jalen Waddle, to a lesser extent, is okay, giving those touches to Tyreek.
I completely agree with you, but we've also heard this offseason that Tyreek doesn't want to do that anymore. He's okay not being the number one guy, and we've even heard Tyreek say, this is Jalen Waddle's year. Of course, all of these guys talk out of their butt, so you never, ever know. But I'm kind of leading Jalen Waddle just because I think the blueprint is slow down Tyreek Hill. Everyone might be a little... Dude, it still kills me that people said that Jalen Waddle had a down year last year. It was just dealing with a couple of nagging injuries. I could see him really hitting the ground running. And this Dolphins offense is so created in a way where even going back to that Chargers game in week 1, man, it was like the first play of the game was Tyreek Hill 30 yards downfield. There's so much crap speed here where I think you could just shock people with having Jalen Waddle there too. Another question, Josh, who has more total yards, Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane?
I'm going to keep going with Achane. Maybe we're disrespecting Raheem Mostert the way, the analysts were last year and had Jeff Wilson, listed above him in every ranking. But I just feel like Achane, man, what he's going to be in that slot as a target, and again, those touches in the backfield, I can't overlook him, but I'm fine having egg on my face. We don't care who it is. I don't care about my fantasy team that much. Just win the game, please. What about you, Jake? You think it's going to be Mostert?
No, man, I think you nailed it with Achane. So Jacksonville allowed the most receptions to running backs last season, and on the surface, this sounds like a poor comparison, but I really see this Miami Dolphins backfield a lot like the Detroit Lions backfield. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are like the perfect visual for thunder and lightning, and Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane are more lightning and lightning. But I really do feel like these are two completely different roles on this Miami Dolphins offense, kind of like what the Lions are doing with Achane and, like the Lions are doing with Gibbs and Montgomery. So what really got me thinking about that was the fact that Raheem Mostert had 19 carries inside the 5-yard line last year. David Montgomery had 18. So thinking about this Jaguars defense and, how they're trying to figure things out on the fly, I really like the idea of Achane being the guy. Why did we let this guy all alone underneath, that type of thing? And I think the Dolphins are going to have so many opportunities just to kind of sneak things by the Jaguars. And I think Devon Achane, man, is like the ideal engine for causing a disaster come Sunday.
I love that. I was going to ask you a question. Who has more catches, Braxton Berrios or Malik Washington?
I think Berrios has 1 catch and Washington has 0. I think that's how that's going to go. Who plays more snaps? Snaps. Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe.
I'll go with Smythe just because they're going to tie back or try to, keep some of that Jonnu Smith F package or whatever you want to call it for, later in the year. But dude, that was what I was going to ask you as well. Do you think this is that Jonnu Smith, that big game? Because I feel like every Dolphins fan's hyped up about Jonnu Smith. Anytime touchdown score, everybody's got him. We'll see.
Do you want to jump in on that, Josh? Should we bet Jonnu Smith anytime touchdown score? I'll jump in
Ken,
on that.
what did we get? I know a lot of people did Henry yesterday. Did you do Henry? I think I had Derrick Henry at any time, but I did a parlay where I just ended up losing anyway.
That's the point of parlays, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who has more tackles on Sunday? David Long Jr., Jordan Brooks.
David Long Jr.
Ooh.
I had to think about that one. I guess the captain thing is just the thing that I'm focusing on in that situation. That's all I got. I'm scared though of both of them in coverage. And should we segue into the next thing? Because that would have been here's our last thought, Jake, of this game. And it's can the Dolphins stop Travis Etienne? And anyone that knows me, I've been a huge Travis Etienne fan. I think it was my RB1 that year he came out. But to me, it's what he can do in the passing game. What he can do as a run in the run game that has me a little bit worried and makes me wonder, are we going to miss Christian Wilkins? I mean, we've been talking about it all off season long. I saw a video they posted. It was him running out slow motion. Las Vegas. It broke my heart. It was in like perfect, like 20K too. It looked like a movie. And I was just like, they really had to do this. I want to know what this Dolphins run defense is going to look like. And Travis Etienne's one of the better backs. Tank Bigsby's behind him. I think I'm going to mess that up. Dearness Johnson's behind him. Did I say that? I guess I said that right. So, I mean, they have,
right? Johnson,
he was a fantasy stud. Yeah. That scares me though. Is he going to be that guy that, let's not talk about it. Let's not speak into existence. But the Dolphins stopping the Jacksonville Jaguars run game. We talked about the skill players and what's going to happen there. Give me your thoughts, Jake, on how this matchup's going to brew. Because again, Travis Etienne's pretty damn good when he has that rock in his hand.
You just want somebody. There are going to be some twists and turns, but you just want somebody who can step up and just flat out make a play. And it's super queasy when you consider like Bradley Chubb, known for making a play. Jalen Phillips, he's going to be on a pitch count. There's the Jalen Ramsey injury. That brings me to Javon Holland, man. I think that Javon Holland might be the key for stopping someone like Travis Etienne, the way he can move all over the field. If you could maybe just have, Javon Holland spying Travis Etienne all game, you might get a contract extension by the end. Like if there's a scenario where I'd even understand where if they quote unquote let Etienne run, where it kind of looks like Austin Eckler and that crazy Chargers rushing attack, just so you're not having Herbert, throw in bombs. And, if someone's got to rush the ball 6 times to score a touchdown, there are 6 times you could get a fumble, a penalty, something to back them up compared to just the one long shot bomb where it's just over, that type of thing. So, man, this would be a great opportunity for someone like Javon Holland because Bradley Chubb there, I'd feel a little better. Christian Wilkins there, I'd feel a little better. Knowing what this defensive line's even going to look like when you consider the pitch counts and playing on Thursday night, that'd be so much more of a relief. So knowing all that, got to lean on what you know best, and that's Javon Holland being a stud. So let's go with him as that lockdown guy for Travis Etienne.
No, yeah, I love that. Maybe I should be sitting here trying to hype up Channing Tindall as a guy that they use a little bit in that aspect. But I think, again, what is so intriguing, not only is Travis Etienne very good, but it's like you mentioned, the makeup of this defensive line. We heard Anthony Weaver say all the edge rushers are going to play. How's that going to look? Chop Robinson's on the edge. He's not that good against the run yet. Is he, stealing the edge, or are we getting up a big play to Travis Etienne? Things like that are going to be so fun to watch and dissect because, I mean, that's what makes us love football so much. So I hope the Dolphins can show that defense is the same defense that we saw last year when they're 7th in the NFL, allowing only 97.1 yards per game and 15th in passing. I mean, I feel like they can take another step, but it starts up front with that defensive line and those linebackers.
All right, brother. Are you ready to give your game prediction? Do you want me to go first? Want me to set the table, or you got something?
No, you go first. You got this. I do have a score, so if you steal my score, I'll have to hurry.
I'm going 31 Dolphins. Oh, I see the smile. If I say 17 Jaguars, did I just step right on your toes there?
No, you're good. The Dolphins have 31 though, so yours was 31-17.
Did you have 31-24? Is that what's coming?
31-27. So close. Yeah, it was close.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I guess I was looking too much at that 36-34 Chargers battle, but I think they're a better team than we're giving them credit. And we know these first games of the year, they could always go either way. So I don't know, man. That's mine. 31-27 Dolphins. You had what? 31-14 or 17?
Yeah.
17.
It's really those red zone trips, especially Josh. I could see it going your way where I think the offenses are going to kind of seize the day and really run the show. But 7 points compared to 3, I don't know if you know this, is just such a major difference where I think that's how Miami could maybe develop some breathing room, and all of a sudden the Jacksonville offense has to become a little one-dimensional. You just got to get those points early. You really have to put the Jacksonville Jaguars in a spot where you can kind of plot how their offense is playing. I think that'll be Miami's best bet. That's why I think 31-17, maybe a late third quarter interception when the Jags are driving to kind of breathing room it. We'll see.
Yeah, and I did say 31-27. That was before you gave us that hold. You got me hyped up talking about all these players that Dolphins are signing, these elite players, and how our expectations should be a little bit higher. So whether it's on paper or not, I want to see the Dolphins, put a beating down for a lesser word. So let's see, man. 31-27. I can't get that 62-7 loss in 2000 in the playoffs out of my head. I had to look that up to do this, and I was just so sad.
Josh, I can't believe you could say you're sad. It's the opening weekend of football. I'm feeling good. I wanted to wrap this show by going in, and 10 years ago, everybody had fantasy football. Maybe there were pick'em leagues, but Josh, there are so many different ways to play football these days. I wanted to go into one of the games at least. Let's talk about survivor pools. Entering week 1, nobody knows anything about any teams. And if you're new to football, new to the show, or new to survivor pools, basically the idea is each week you pick one team, no spread, no nothing. You guarantee that they're going to win that game. And you just try to, survive. And what makes it challenging, Josh, is that you can only pick each team once. So you could try to BQ. You could try to say, I'm going to save the Chiefs for 14 weeks. But if you don't get 14 weeks, then you just look like an idiot. So, Josh, I thought it'd be fun because this is such a tough week to really go through some of these matchups. And I'd love to get your thoughts on who are some of the, let's say, locked in favorites for week 1 of the NFL season. I think there's only one game with a spread more than 7 points. So what I did instead is I went over to ESPN and looked at their pick'em league. I'm going to go through a list of every team that at least 80% of people are picking to win. 80%, 4 out of 5 are picking to win. And I want you to pluck out 3. I want you to pluck out 3 that you're like, all right, these are the ones that I think are going to be locks. And if you want to call out others for being like, holy, that's a trap, I'm in for that too, because I do see a couple of traps. So here we go. Buffalo Bills, 90% over the Cardinals. Chicago Bears, 84% over the Titans. Bengals, 97% over the New England Patriots. Houston Texans, 88% over the Colts. Dolphins, 91% over the Jaguars. Saints, 91% over the Panthers. Seahawks, 88% over the Broncos. Buccaneers, 87% over the Commandos. Lions, 90% over the Rams. 49ers, 89% over the New York Jets. Josh, do you have 3 that stick out? Do you want me to give you the 3 I've been kind of pushing back and forth with first, or you got some?
You give me your 3. I wrote down some, but you give me your 3 because I don't want to step on your toes.
So I'm thinking I like the Saints over the Panthers. Divisional games are always tough. However, the Saints are at home. The Panthers were the worst team in football last year. The Saints are like the Dolphins of the 2010s. They're just always in the hunt. If you're a fan of them, you could talk yourself into them being in a playoff team. But divisional games always scare me. Bengals over the Patriots, the only game that has more than a 7-point spread. That seems like a no-brainer. I'm a little horrified that the Bengals are making their players walk across a busy street to get to practice. So you just have a bunch of people watching these 7-foot men in cleats just walking across a highway. So that's got me a little queasy, but I'm leaning towards the Bengals. And Josh, the final one, man, F the Bills, but 90% over the Cardinals, that's a hard one to ignore as well. So give me your thoughts on any of those. Is there one that you like the most?
No, I think the Bengals, when I wrote that down before we came on here, that was one that really stood out to me. And the only thing that really kept me from doing the Saints and the Panthers was Derek Carr, or it's Derek Carr, right? Or is it David Carr? If the fact that I get those still mixed up to this day is proof that not so good. And the games I had written down as a trap, Titans, Bears. I feel like everyone's kind of crowning Caleb Williams already. I know that the Bears are pretty good, but Mayo Coffee, don't give up on him. And then Texans, Colts. Again, I like the Texans. I think they're a very good team, but
that's the one.
The Colts, I mean, Yeah, Anthony Richardson was a guy everybody's hyped about not too long ago. So those were the ones that stood out to me. And even the Niners Jets, like I can't get over the fact that everyone crowned the Jets last year, and then 4 plays in the season it was over. Like it's still the same Jets team. That defense is still good. I feel like that could be a little bit of a trap, but I'd still hammer the 49ers because F the Jets.
I hate being a Houston hater, but man, I gotta see it going into year 2 with CJ Stroud. I want to just see that consistency. Obviously, you bring in Stephon Diggs. That defense was absolutely great last year too, especially up front. But I just want to see it, especially in a divisional game. I think we've devalued the Colts a little too much, where they're one of those teams that they just haven't had a quarterback, but they've had a rest of a roster that's pretty damn good. So I could see that being one, especially Richardson being healthy. I think they actually played early last year too, and it was a close game. So I'm not saying the Texans are going to lose it, but I could definitely see it being a little closer. Josh, I said the Buffalo Bills over the Arizona Cardinals. I do like that one. I'm just a little nervous about that Buffalo Bills defense, especially in the secondary. So many new faces. I think DeMar Hamlin starting in the secondary. Obviously, Jordan Poyer is in Miami. I think Micah Hyde might have quit. So the Buffalo Bills defense is a little, there's some question marks. Matt Milano, he's not going to be there. And I think Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. And I think that Arizona offense is good enough to at least score points. So I could see that one where I'm not worried about the Buffalo Bills offense. I could see them scoring, 24 to 36 points, no question. But that Bills defense, man, I could see the Cardinals maybe just week 1 being really hot, having some answers and being able to go blow for blow. I'm not saying the Cardinals are, going to be pushing for the NFC West or anything like that, but I could see them being feisty.
Yeah, and every year we have teams that surprise us. So why not Kyler Murray and the Cardinals? I mean, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. now. Did we say anything about the Broncos Seahawks game? I feel like the Seahawks. I'd hammer them because Bo Nix, rookie. I mean, Denver wasn't that good last year, but that one was also weighing on my mind. But which one did you pick? Did you already lock yours in as your survivor, or are you still debating?
I gotta go Bengals. I think I gotta go Bengals. I thought that Patriots defense had an opportunity to maybe not be special, but very good when you have Barmore, Matthew Judon. Those guys are already gone. Judon traded to the Falcons. Barmore's been dealing with some blood clots, and that's very scary. And he's just been one of the best defensive tackles. I think he was a real anchor for that defense. Christian Gonzalez, he was a stout cornerback for them in his rookie year last year. I guess he's had an up and down camp where that defense, they had a couple players that made it special. And I was even ready to go, like have conversations. Like if the Jets start out like a little ugly, I could see the Pats going like 6-11, 7-10, but just the depleted defense along with just the no offense. You got Drake May coming in, and you have Gerard Mayo just throwing players under the bus. There's some discombobulations there. I just think they won't be ready to play a complete game week 1, and I can't wait to see this exact clip just lose there across my forehead when the Pats win like 30-10. Like I could see that too. We haven't seen Joe Burrow in like 8 months. He's coming back from a broken wrist. T. Higgins, he just tweaked his hamstring. You have the Jamar Chase contract disputes that even if he goes out there and plays, which I think he says he's questionable, you have to be a little worried about going out there, and then you can spin zone it and say, well, actually he's played with Joe Burrow for so long it doesn't matter. So I'm spinning that control. Josh, help me.
I was gonna say, are you talking yourself out of it? I don't even know. Like I felt like the Bengals was the surefire. Now you got me even thinking. I mean, none of that's gonna happen, right?
It's got to be the sure. The Patriots defense is just like if the Patriots' path to winning, I think would have been like a couple turnovers. You make Joe Burrow a little uncomfortable being like back into the mix, and you score, and maybe you make it an ugly like that. What was it, Bills Pats game where the ball was thrown like 3 times and it's just a field goal fest? I could see that, but the Pats defense, I just don't think it's good enough. Josh, Lions 90% over the Rams. What was your thoughts there?
I feel like we're overlooking the Rams and we forget what they were, when Stafford's healthy and, I don't know what's going on in their running back room and things like that. The receivers are banged up as well, but I feel like they're disrespecting them a little bit, right?
Did you hear that Kyron Williams would be returning punts? Did you feel that one?
Yeah, I did hear that. I think I'm in a couple fantasy leagues and I was like, oh, come on, man. Don't do that.
Just always reminds me of the Preston Williams. But with the punt returning too, it is only like 8 plays a game, and you're going to fair catch probably half of them. Yes, you have guys going full speed at you, and I probably shouldn't have buried that lead, but I don't think it's like that impactful as people think. And Cooper Kupp, man, everyone's sleeping on him coming back and just being an absolute stud. So Rams are another team where like Lions 90% over Rams. That's crazy to me. And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, don't sleep on Hunter Long. Hunter Long, got to remember him, right? He's still
That's no, dude. That makes a great point. I'm just trying to see if there was anyone else on this list. Bucks over Commandos at 87%. Yes, the Washington Commanders have a rookie quarterback, but the Bucks, the Southern teams, man, I don't know what it is. They just seem like they're a little hollower than some of the Northwestern teams, and it's a little frustrating because the Dolphins do partially feel like sometimes one of that little more hollow teams, and partially, hey, if we were in that division, we'd be winning it every single year, right?
Yeah, and you got to give respect to Dan Quinn as well. I feel like he's one of those coaches that now that he's got another chance, he's not gonna, he's gonna do shit right. So I feel like they're gonna be a lot tougher team than many expect. But that was one I was looking at. Like if Baker Mayfield's back and looks decent, they should be able to run with that. But you can't count out a rookie, and Dan Quinn's defense just can't do it.
So Josh, official, want to lock in the Bengals? Worst case, This is the last time we do this segment all year,
Yeah, perfect. And if not, maybe we'll go the whole year. Just keep picking it right, and hopefully you win money. I'm not in any, I don't think so. Won't help me.
That is it. That is all the time we have today on Another Dolphins podcast. That is our game preview for week 1. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We've gotten a massive bump in listeners recently. We hope we're helping you scratch that podcast, that Miami Dolphins itch. Sorry I didn't have the ticker going, but if you'd like to get involved with the conversation, you want to have your voice heard, reach out to us, AnotherDolphinsPodcast@gmail.com. You can find Houtz on Twitter at HOUTZ. I'm at JMendel94. If you'd like to hang out with our beautiful faces, you can watch the show on YouTube, 560 WQAM. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will be back with some instant reactions to hopefully the first regular season victory Monday of the year. But thank you all so much for joining us. Go have a great football weekend. And until next time, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up.